Welcome back, everybody. We're here for episode 11 of the Mariners Deep Dive podcast. Host Luke Westfall here, as always, with co-host Jacob Westfall. And our last episode, we recorded our predictions for the MLB season. Today, we will be doing our predictions and our preview of the Mariners season, as well as covering all the MLB news and transactions that you need, as well as any current or ongoing Mariners news at the moment. So as always, we jump right into the news today with some MLB news. Today is opening day. We mentioned in our last episode, the Mariners opening day was pushed back a day, which is why our Mariners season preview podcast, which is this one, was also pushed back a day to today from yesterday, because the Mariners opening day against the Twins is now tomorrow. So make sure you tune into that. But some MLB news from today. CJ Abrams, the top 100 prospect shortstop for the Padres, especially with Tatis injured, helped this news come to life. He makes the Padres opening day roster, so another top prospect, as well as 53 prospects in their organization's top 30 prospects made opening day rosters, which is, I believe it is a record. I'm not totally sure whether that's a record or not, but it is a very high number. And considering how many teams, pretty much everybody, Mariners included, in the last few years have done things like the Pirates are doing right now, where they keep guys down for a few weeks or for extra time to try and manipulate service time. We're seeing a lot of guys getting to come up this year, and it's really cool to see. Bryson Stott comes up as well, the 45th ranked prospect in the top 100. With the Phillies. So that's really cool. We're going to get to see Adley Rutschman in a few weeks when he comes back from injury. And we're hopefully going to get to see O'Neal Cruz soon, when the Pirates hopefully eventually call him up once they get their extra year of service time that they are manipulating him for this year. So it is really cool to see all those guys making opening day rosters, and a big shift of the guard in the MLB with new draft pick compensation for rookies that perform really well in their rookie season. Also, speaking of rookies, Bobby Witt picked up his first hit of his MLB career today with an RBI double. They won 3-1 against the Guardians. We aren't going to necessarily be going over all the games every day from around the MLB on this podcast, and we're not going to be recording every single day, but we will be recording around after each series or every two series ish, and recapping all that stuff for the Mariners. And so we might mention some games or scores or stuff like that that really affect us. In this case, I only mentioned that score just because it involves the storyline of Bobby Witt here. So he gets his first big league hit. So he's the first one of those big name rookies to kind of get on the board. There are still plenty of teams that have not played yet and will debut tomorrow, so we'll get to see those. Another big rookie, Seiya Suzuki, he started his career nicely. His team also won today on opening day, the Cubs, and he was 1 for 2. I saw him get his first hit as I was driving to work today. He also had a couple of walks, so it was a good day for him. Bad news for a former top prospect, Mickey Moniak, former first overall pick with the Phillies, broke his hand, so he will not be on the opening day roster. And the last piece of MLB news here is that CC Sabathia, the future Hall of Fame pitcher, unless he's already in, correct me if I'm wrong about him already being in or not. I don't believe he is, with the way that the MLB Hall of Fame is so slow with their processing. But CC Sabathia, future Hall of Fame pitcher, former Yankees pitcher, was named a special assistant to the commissioner. So that's a cool note as well. So Jake, a lot of stuff about prospects, CC Sabathia and whatnot. What out of this MLB news kind of stands out for you?
So CC Sabathia is a Hall of Famer, by the way, but I did watch Bobby Witt get his first hit. He kind of struggled his first couple at bats. Comes in, I think it was the 8th inning. I can't remember if they were at home. It was the 8th inning, though. Hits an RBI double to take the lead, and they eventually win. So he basically had the game-winning double. Seiya Suzuki, I've never heard such a loud cheer for a walk in like the first inning of the first game of the year. But he had a really, really good day. He looks like an exciting player. Already, looks like an MLB ready player. It looks like he's probably not going to struggle very much. I mean, to come in your first MLB game and to get 2 walks and a hit, 4 plate appearances, and you already have an on base percentage of what, 750. That's pretty dang good. And then as for prospects making the top 30, I think it's exciting. This is what the MLB wants. This is what MLB teams want. I mean, the amount of cheering for rookies and home crowds is, crazy. Like Bobby Witt's walking up and people are chanting Bobby, 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 and then the cheers for Seiya Suzuki. I mean, it's just an exciting brand of baseball.
Yeah, definitely good stuff going on. Also in MLB news, we'll go over kind of a large load of moves kind of going around the MLB, but we'll really only discuss the bigger ones. But just to kind of get a lot of this news out of the way. So the Cleveland Guardians traded Bradley Zimmer, the outfielder, to the Blue Jays for reliever Anthony Castro. The AJ Ramos retired, so he's a former solid MLB reliever. The Padres dished off Victor Caratini with cash to the Brewers for a couple of minor leaguers, so the Brewers get catcher depth. With the news now of Pedro Severino being suspended for 80 games for PEDs that he allegedly said was for him and his wife with some fertility stuff to like start a family or some kind of stuff like that. But sounds a little bit like what Robinson Cano tried to say, was like helping him with some stuff that was going on. But nonetheless, he is suspended 80 games for that. So that move for the Brewers to get Victor Caratini is good there. And obviously the Padres already have Austin Nola, and they already made a move this offseason for Jorge Alfaro. So they have those catchers. The Mets signed John Curtis to a 1-year, $770,000 contract. He's a really solid reliever the last couple of years. Pirates signed Jake Marisnick, and they also signed Andrew Knapp, both to minor league deals. Jordy Mercer also retired, a guy that's played a long kind of bench warming career in the MLB. Let's see what else here. Dellin Betances signed a minor league deal with the Dodgers. Yankees picked up Greg Bird. They got him back on a minor league deal, which is interesting. Thought he might have made the team with the Blue Jays, but then he ended up getting cut, which was shocking after the spring that he had. The Todd father, Todd Frazier, also retired from baseball. He had some really solid years in his career, a long career. So congratulations to him on that. And then Richard Rodriguez, who was on the Braves on the World Series run last year, and was a really good reliever on the Pirates for a couple of years. And then Danny Santana, who we've seen with the Rangers as a utility guy, both suspended for 80 games of PEDs. So a lot of there was another guy too that I don't remember the name of that got suspended 80 games for PEDs, but a lot of guys getting suspended for that in the last couple of days. That's a lot of kind of the baseline news. Some of the bigger news that we might talk about a little bit here. So the Pirates extend Ke'Bryan Hayes, their 25-year-old third baseman of the future, to an 8-year, $70 million contract extension. That is now the biggest contract in the history of the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is shocking. Their previous high, in terms of total money over a contract, their previous high was 6 years, $60 million, I believe. This is less per year, but it is more in total. A lot of people are saying that Ke'Bryan Hayes could have gone for more or could have bet on himself and waited out arbitration. But, with the Padres having manipulated his service time a little bit, he's going to be hitting free agency close to 30. So the risk of betting on yourself is injuries and age and not performing quite to that point. So he gets some security and a very tradable contract if in case that ever does come up. So that is certainly an interesting one that we'll get Jake's feedback on in 1 second, because there is one other big extension that I wanted to mention, and that is Jose Ramirez, who's one of the best third basemen in the game. There were rumors of teams like the Padres and Blue Jays wanting to trade for him and put him at potentially, second base or third base DH spot, somewhere in there. But the Guardians have inked a 5-year, $124 million contract extension with him, which is right around $25 million a year. It's $1 million less in total than what would be $25 million a year. So pretty good value for that. The Guardians spend some money and keep one of their headline guys around, which is going to make the fan base happy. They obviously in our last episode mentioned that they re-signed Emmanuel Clase. So they're making some moves to keep guys around. So Jake, you see these extensions from these clubs that are known for not spending money, and you see them spending a little bit of money, whether you think those contracts are big enough or not. And what kind of impression does that leave on you?
I think these teams are actually going to try and win now. I think the new rule changes are encouraging winning, and the Pirates aren't going to pay people, but if they can get people to these kind of contracts right now, that's a win for them. And Brian Hayes has injury issues. He already has a minor injury after one inning of play this year. As for Jose Ramirez, I'm surprised they kept him. I really thought he was gone, but lucky for you, Cleveland fans. One you didn't talk about was Ryan Presley getting paid $30 million.
Oh, right, that's right.
$30 million a year. And then like Manuel Margot gets $19 million for the Rays. So like a lot of people are signing extensions right now. And a piece of news that I'd like to bring up is reportedly Rafael Devers received a contract extension offer in the offseason from the Red Sox, and he declined it.
Wow.
So I'm not 100% how that ties into him staying in Boston. That would be pretty big news for a third baseman like that moving on. Who knows if Rafael Devers ends up being a free agent in 1 or 2 years? I'm not sure how long his contract is right now, but if he ends up being a free agent, he could be a good third baseman for the Mariners.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. So he's going to become a free agent at just 27 years old. So if the Mariners had some money laying around they wanted to spend, I mean, only 27 years old, lefty bat, big time hitter. They're probably going to have space there at third base unless Noel V. Marte comes up and fills that spot or something like that. Because I don't think it's going to be Suarez for the long run for sure. Or maybe Toro takes over that spot if he really starts to show something here. But I could see him taking over the everyday second base role eventually in his career, with Frazier being a little bit older too. So we'll see how things shake out, and obviously the better player wins there. The other one that if we're mentioning guys that are in a little bit of a feud right now with contract extensions would be Aaron Judge, who apparently has wanted more money, and apparently talks have stalled out for the moment with Aaron Judge and the Yankees. Doesn't mean they won't happen anymore or that he won't get an extension, but they are not currently working on it. So that's another one to watch for the future, because he would be another huge free agent on the market. And all we can hope is that they don't go to the Dodgers. So we get into some more news, some trades here, bigger name trades. So the Padres dish off Chris Paddock, who's a former top prospect and actually had a really good rookie year. Also Emilio Pagan, who's a former Mariner. They trade them to the Minnesota Twins in exchange for the great reliever Taylor Rogers and then Brent Rooker. So that's a really interesting deal. The Twins wanted some more starting pitching depth. They've signed Chris Archer, and they signed somebody else that I can't remember. And then obviously they made the move already this offseason for Sonny Gray, and they already have Joe Ryan, who's going to start opening day against the Mariners tomorrow. But they make some more moves for that rotation and the depth. However, they aren't going to have Taylor Rogers in that bullpen, which is really nice for the Mariners in this upcoming series, because he's a really nice arm at the back end.
So is Robbie Ray still going to start tomorrow? Or are we
pushing back the rotation? Robbie, nope. The whole rotation is still online the way they were, just an extra day off for everybody. So Robbie Ray is still the opening day starter. Joe Ryan is still the opening day starter for the Twins.
And are we thinking that they're going to do a double header sometime?
No, it's not a double. They already had tomorrow off, So what the schedule was going to be was they play the opener today, have Friday off, then play Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It was a 4-game series with a day off after the first game. Because
Okay.
what happened was is so in the original schedule before games were canceled because of the lockout, the Mariners were going to play 5 home games. So the first 3 were going to be against Detroit, then 2 against the Angels, then day off, game against the Twins, day off, then 3 more against the Twins. They canceled those first 5 games, so it was going to be opening day, day off, and then 3 more games and whatnot. But yeah, so having a day off the day after the day after the opener and having the opener snowed out is actually pretty convenient timing because we don't have to can't do any double headers or cancel anything. So they just slide it back real nice and easy there and
Man,
right into that spot.
to think that Minnesota doesn't have a dome or a retractable roof and teams like Tampa Bay do.
I mean, it tells you why. I mean, they used to have a dome. That stadium kind of sucked. So they get a really nice stadium. Their stadium is really nice, but it's also wide open in Minnesota in the spring and in the fall. That is not exactly great weather there. Other locations like Tampa Bay also has that, which is kind of smart. You know, the Marlins have the retractable roof and whatnot because they're in Florida and it can rain and hurricanes weather and stuff. But Tampa Bay Stadium really sucks too. So hopefully they get a new, better stadium in Tampa Bay, but we'll see how that works out. Anyways, so the other news we had on here, you mentioned the Presley news, mentioned the Manuel Margot extension. So the other one is Johnny Cueto signs a 1-year deal with the White Sox, helps kind of fill in the void with Lance Lynn missing time. So that deal with Cueto is going to be a minor league deal, but if he makes the major league squad, it will be a $4.2 million deal. And then the Tampa Bay Rays traded Austin Meadows to the Tigers for Isaac Paredes and a competitive balance round B draft pick. So the Tigers get a little bit stronger in that outfield with Meadows, who's kind of a hit or miss bat, not great defensively, but has some pop and can be a little bit inconsistent and streaky kind of guy at the plate from the left side. Jake, who do you think, or not who do you think won? I think that's kind of obvious, but 3 years of control for Austin Meadows. I mean, what do you necessarily make of that trade for both
Mm,
sides?
So this is a typical Rays deal. You kind of get rid of a guy who's um, gonna want more money, and you go get a younger guy um,
But he's
like
not an
Paredes.
outfielder, though. He's an infielder. They already have a bunch of infielders.
Yeah, but he's more of a third baseman. Third baseman, and the Rays don't really have one that I can think of. They have a bunch of middle infielders.
The Rays'
Plus,
third baseman is Diaz. What's his name? Yandy Diaz.
honestly, I think Paredes might fit in there better. Plus, Paredes can play all of the infield positions besides first. Um, and then in 2021, he hit 208 in 85 at bats with the homer. Nothing huge, but if I'm correct, if I look at his fielding stats, he's a pretty solid fielder.
Yeah, he's pretty
Um,
good.
he had 2 total errors last year. And when he was at third base, he didn't have a single one, made quite a few plays. Um, honestly, I think that this trade is a win for the Rays. They get a draft pick too, and you know the Rays, they don't want to pay anybody, and they go get a guy who is cheap, is young, and has a lot of upside. Whereas Meadows, he seemed to kind of fall off last year from what you would expect. He hit 234, 27 homers. He did have 106 RBIs, but you know, the year before that, he wasn't great. He kind of fell off from 2019 when he was an all-star. I believe yeah, all-star. Um, so this is a good trade for the Tigers and the Rays. I think this kind of fits what both teams want to do. But like, I don't think the Tigers are going to win a bunch more games because of this. And I don't think that the Rays are going to lose a bunch more games because of this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take the other side of that and say that I think the Rays took a big fat L here. But the only reason I'm not going to necessarily guarantee that is because they're the Rays and they do this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, thing is here is Paredes had some hype, but like he's okay defensively. He's not much. They already have a pretty full infield, a lot of utility players. Maybe slots in there somewhere. They get a draft pick, I guess. But I mean, I mentioned like they're not going to have to pay Meadows because he's got 3 more years of team control. And he's only 26, so he can always still pop off. And he already has popped off. Like he was an all-star 24, had 33 home runs, 29 doubles, 291, 364, 558. And I mean, last year, yeah, the low average, but 106 RBIs, 27 home runs, had the 315 on base with the, I mean,
Well,
he had a 117 OPS plus, which means he's a pretty well above average hitter. And I mean, I know that the defense doesn't play a bunch, but he's only 26. He's got 3 years of control. So I guess I could
but
see why maybe the Rays would want to get rid of him. But I just think that this is a really good. All I'm going to say here is, the Rays can do the Rays, but I think this is a really good move for the Tigers.
well, I think like he doesn't really. They don't really need him in the outfield. They have a Rosarena. They have Kevin Kiermaier, who is one of the best defensive center fielders in the game. Then you have Margot, who you just re-signed, and then you have Brett Phillips as your other outfielder. And I think Brett Phillips is a pretty solid player. If I can look at his statistics, he was a pretty solid hitter, and pretty much a Cy Young. But yeah, I don't think I hate this for the Rays though. They get a prospect, and their outfield is pretty solid already.
Fair enough. So with that, we're going to move into Mariners transactions before we get into our main topics. So first, some quick deals for the Mariners. First one, they have signed third baseman Taylor Featherston to a minor league contract. Featherston has spent some time in the MLB level. He's 32, and in 219 at career at bats, he has 4 home runs, hits 160, 16 RBIs, and a 221 on base. The next move is they signed left-handed pitcher Austin Warner. Austin Warner is there he is. Austin Warner is 27 years old, and has he spent time at the major league? No. So never spent time at the major league level. He's more of a minor league guy. AAA last year. Looks like the whip was 1.087, ERA 3.34. So actually pretty solid pitcher in AAA last year, left-handed arm. So Mariners a little bit desperate for left-handed arms in their bullpen, could potentially be a guy that, if there are injuries and stuff like that, could be a depth piece in the bullpen. And then the next one, they signed Rob Kaminsky, who's another just minor league pitcher contract there. Right-handed pitcher. He's 27 years old, and in his career, he's thrown 4.2 innings and has a 1.93 ERA in 5 games. All those games were in 2020, so I haven't seen him in a little while, but another guy that is on the verge of MLB-ish depth kind of piece, but none of these guys are going to be in the MLB, probably barring something crazy or a lot of injuries or something. And then the next move is Jairo Diaz. They signed on a minor league deal. He's 29 years old. He's thrown 107 in the third innings in the MLB. He has a 4.86 career ERA. He has 9 saves, but he has a 1.547 career whip. has spent parts of 5 seasons in the MLB, 15 or 2014, 15, then 17, then 19 and 20. So hasn't seen the field in a while. So another depth piece for the Mariners in terms of bullpen pitchers. And then they made a move to acquire minor league infielder Mason McCoy from the Orioles in exchange for cash. So not much big there. A lot of minor league guys. Also, some final roster moves. They selected the contract of Matt Festa from the Rainiers. So he will be in the MLB this season. They had one open spot left on the 40-man roster. They give it to Festa, and he will be one of the many relievers on the Mariners opening day roster with the 2 extra spots. Good for him. Had Tommy John earlier in his career and now finds his way back up to the big leagues. He has spent some time in the big leagues back in 2018 and 19 with the Mariners. Actually, in 2018, at 25 years old, he only threw 8 innings, but he had a 196 ERA plus with a 3.28 FIP and a 2.16 ERA, and then struggled in 2019 before having Tommy John surgery. He's also still only 29, so potentially some potential there ish. Maybe they can turn him into a solid reliever this season. We'll see. And then moves that everybody expected. Sadler, Evan White, Ken Giles, and Kyle Lewis all start the season on the 10-day IL. Giles with the finger, he'll be back soon. Lewis is getting very close, but not quite ready. They gave him some extra time. White, we don't know how long he's out with the sports hernia. And Sadler, they are probably going to put on the 10-day IL like 100 consecutive times. So we'll just see how that happens. Teams are very hesitant to put guys on the 60-day IL. Last move, Wyatt Mills goes to Tacoma to round out the major league roster, which we'll talk about in a second. Jake, does any of these moves stand out to you for the Mariners?
Not really. These are all just kind of formalities. The only interesting one is Matt Festa. Trying to see what he can do in the MLB if he even does get opportunities. If he does, they're probably going to be very limited. But hopefully we can find some one man's trash is another man's treasure kind of thing. As in, he hasn't really been anything ever, and the Mariners somehow can make good players out of players who are just, But yeah, go Matt Festa.
Go Matt Festa, indeed. So we take a look here at the Mariners opening day roster that we will see tomorrow. The pitchers are the rotation, of course, of Robbie Ray, Marco Gonzalez, Logan Gilbert, Chris Flexen, and then Matt Brash. And then the bullpen consists of Diego Castillo, Matt Festa, Anthony Misevich, Andres Munoz, Johan Ramirez, Sergio Romo, Paul Sewald, Drew Steckenrider, Eric Swanson, and also Justice Sheffield gets another chance. The infielders, JP Crawford, Ty France, Adam Frazier, Dylan Moore, Eugenio Suarez, Abraham Toro. So it'll be interesting to see how they move guys like Toro around and such. Only 4 outfielders with Mitch Haniger, Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, and Jesse Winker, because we decided to keep 3 catchers in Murphy, Cal Raleigh, and Luis Torrens. Of course, Adam Frazier has outfield flexibility. They've been training at Abraham Toro to potentially play in left field if he had to, and also Dylan Moore as utility guy also has outfield flexibility. So nothing to worry about there, and nothing to really talk about there. We've already kind of talked about, or we already kind of knew those guys would be on the roster there, and we'll talk about them some more in our season predictions for the Mariners. But before we get into that, just one last topic. Just some news and notes from the Mariners affiliates announcing their rosters today. That would be AAA, AA, and High A. Low A Modesto also announced their rosters, but kind of posted about that on the Instagram page a few days ago. So as always, make sure you go check out the story on the Instagram page, Mariners Deep Dive Podcast on Instagram. I post about that stuff on the story when it comes out, give some feedback on the minor league games and all that good stuff. So you can kind of stay tuned in and stay connected with the podcast, even when we're not releasing an episode there. So make sure you check that out. But some notes on the minor league rosters, interesting things, obviously injuries still with guys like Joey Gerber, Roenis Elias, and Tommy Malone, as well as injury in AA with Emerson Hancock. So we're still waiting for them. But Asher Wojciechowski's pitching today. We also get to see guys like Darren McCoggin, who pitched last year, Nick Margavicius is pitched in the MLB. They'll be starters in AAA, so they're interesting. And then Billy Hamilton and Steven Souza, who the Mariners optioned both of down to the minor leagues, both accepted that option. They have 48 hours to decline that if they have a certain amount of service time, and then they would be released and then they can sign with another team. They accepted it though, so they will be in the minor leagues, which is kind of cool for depth. If we have some injuries or somebody struggling in the outfield and we need to call them up. Also cool notes from the AAA team. Joe Odom is back, and also Sam Haggerty, Mike Ford are there, as well as Eric Mejia, who's the guy that Jake was really interested in, Donnie Walton, of course. And then from last year's draft class, you could see Spencer Packard, who is the 9th round pick out of the University of Campbell. He's an outfielder. James Parker, who is a infielder, who is our 8th round pick last year, and Andy Thomas out of Baylor, who's a catcher, our 5th round pick last year, are all already in AAA. So good for them. AA, a lot of the usual suspects. George Kirby kind of headlines that pitching staff along with Juan Then, but he's on the injured list. And then the lineup is pretty much normal stuff going on there, but Joe Rizzo is interesting to watch, Zach DeLoach and whatnot. And then high A. I mean, this is where you'll see some of the other guys from last year's draft class. Most of them are going to be in low A, but guys like Jimmy Joyce and whatnot, not as loaded as last year when we had all our top prospects there. Alberto Rodriguez, who came over in that Taiwan Walker trade there in low A. Noelvi Marte is there in high A as well. So those are some interesting guys to watch there. And then there's a few other guys from last year's draft class in that high A. So also, and the other one is Taylor Trammell's in AAA too. So he's a fun one to watch in the minor leagues, even if he can't figure it out in the big leagues. So Jake, do you have any thoughts at all about anybody you're watching this year to see what they can do in the minor leagues, or any interesting storylines that you might be paying attention to with the minor league teams?
Not particularly. I don't really pay too much attention to minor league. I'll check in on, breakout guys every now and then, but I don't have much to say on minor league players until, a month into their seasons, and there's stories to really talk about. Maybe you want to talk about like some of our rookies in low A or Noelvi Marte, but it's kind of hard to pick out storylines when none of them have really played yet.
It's definitely true to that. So that's pretty much all the news for the episode. So we'll get into some predictions that we are crafting out of thin air right now for you guys. So no pre-planned stuff here, all true thoughts coming at you. Our picks for the Mariners this year, we'll start off with award picks for this season. So we'll go through, talk about each one, and give one player for each category here for each of us. So the first category is team MVP. And I mean, if you think a pitcher is going to be good enough that they could win it, you could pick that. But overall, the point of this award is pretty much the best overall position player from the team. So I will go first for team MVP. I thought about a guy like Mitch Haniger, with the home run and RBI production. I thought about, breakout somebody like Eugenio Suarez coming back there, or potentially Jesse Winker, who's a big asset that we acquired, obviously Rodriguez and all these guys, Adam Frazier. But my pick for MVP this year is a guy that Jake is currently wearing on his jersey, and that is Ty France. And the reason why is because he had the best fielding percentage in the MLB last year among first basemen at .999 once he got transferred over there from third, second, hybrid, and DH. So he's great defensively there at first base. Really great guy in the locker room and all that, and everybody likes him. But he's also a great bat too. I mean, he was fantastic last year with the offense. Ty Ty France was. The power wasn't really there, but he got hit in the wrist. He got hit a franchise record last year. I don't have the exact number on that, but I know it was a franchise record. Still had 18 home runs, hit 291 with 73 RBIs and a 368 on base with an OPS plus of 128, which means that it's not a fluke. He truly is a fantastic hitter. And he's only 27 years old, so I expect more of it, and also a fantastic defensive player, and I expect him to contend for a gold glove at first base next year, which is pretty much what we had with Evan White, but we didn't have the offense. So it's great to see this guy, Ty France, really coming into his own. So Jake, MVP pick for the Mariners this season.
Yeah, it's Mitch Haniger. Haniger is definitely our best hitter. He doesn't have the average like Ty France or JP Crawford or Jesse Winker. But what he has that those guys don't have is, the power and the Ty France has some of this, but he's got the clutch gene. He's coming up. It's the bottom of the ninth. You need a run. He's gonna get it to you. He hits in the mid 250s, but 39 home runs and 100 RBIs, over 100 runs. He's just our best player on offense. He can do it all. He'll get you double. He'll get you single. He might leg out a triple every now and then. Probably not, unless, we're in like San Francisco. His one into the triple alley. And he's a solid glove in the outfield. He's not great, but he certainly doesn't hurt you out there. So yeah, he's our best player and he deserves to be the team MVP next year. And that's what I expect out of him.
All fair points. So the next award is Cy Young, and like it or not, I went with the easy route on this one and picked the guy that won the Cy Young last year. So that is Robbie Ray. He now holds a Cy Young. He's a one-time All-Star, and he wasn't an All-Star last year, so he's had more good seasons than just last year. Also now holds an ERA title. He's only 30 years old. He's pitched in the MLB a long time. His last All-Star appearance was at 25 with Arizona when he had a 3.72 ERA. You look at him and everybody thinks he's so inconsistent and he came out of nowhere last year. But when he was 23 with Arizona, he had 23 starts, 127 innings, and had a 1.17 ERA plus, 3.53 FIP, and also had my whole screen just adjusted on me, but he also had a 3.52 ERA that year in 2015. 2017, 2.89 ERA over 162 innings, which was 28 starts, good for a 3.72 FIP, also a 1.15 WHIP. So it was just a great year. 12 strikeouts. He's never averaged less than 11 strikeouts a season since then, other than 10.9 in 2020, which is pretty much 11. He's been awesome ever since then. Strikes out guys at an insane rate. And then last year led the league with 248 strikeouts, as well as a 1.54 ERA plus 1.045 WHIP. And 193 innings led the MLB, 32 starts led the MLB, 2.84 ERA led the MLB. Like, he was so dominant last year, and he's had really good seasons in his career. Back in 2018, he had a 3.93 ERA. And you look at FIP, which pretty much takes away the defense, and the dude has had 3 seasons of a below 3.75 FIP in his career prior to last year. So he's had really good years in his past. He was just about figuring things out. He gets out of Arizona, goes to Toronto, and is really dominant last year. And I think he will continue to do that, especially in a hitter's park like we have here in Seattle.
Yeah, I think a big problem about Robbie Ray in Arizona is that he played in Arizona, and it just seems to, pitchers can't stay consistent whenever they're in Arizona. You think of like Zach Gallen and Madison Bumgarner, guys who are like solid, but then, they're in Arizona and they struggle a lot. But then Robbie Ray comes to Toronto and he's instantly better. So he's also my pick for Cy Young. I can't really go against him. His projections are definitely way lower than they should be. especially for ERA and all that. And if you look at like the advanced metric of ERA plus, that kind of tells you how good of a pitcher they are, with 100 being average. He's been over 100 for all but three seasons. The first one where he wasn't was his rookie year. And then he had his third year where he was slightly below average. And then you had 2020, the shortened season, where he was way below average. But other than that, he's been above or, stellar. I'm looking at his baseball reference, and they have this thing where if there's a gold underlining for your career total, it indicates an all-time career record. And apparently he currently has an all-time career record for strikeout per nine at 11.2, which is
Correct.
interesting. So he's basically the best strikeout pitcher of all time. And so that's why I can't bet against him for Cy Young.
Yeah, he's always got the strikeouts going for him, and that is a statistics lover's dream for pitchers. The next award is Breakout Player of the Year. This could be sort of like Comeback Player of the Year, but it could also just be a guy that has never been good if you wanted to pick someone, or, like a prospect or someone like that is coming up. And I think some of the easier picks here could be like, Jared Kelenic had a tough rookie year. Maybe he breaks out. Julio Rodriguez, of course, could break out. Which if we had an award for rookie of the year, we would pick Julio Rodriguez. But the reason I didn't have it is because we would both pick Julio Rodriguez. So, I mean, you could pick a guy like a Kyle Lewis who could maybe come back from injury. The guy that I'm picking is going to be our new third baseman, or at least temporarily third baseman, assuming he doesn't fail me and get beaten out by Abraham Toro or something like that. And that's going to be Eugenio Suarez is my breakout player of the year. And that is because he has had a 198 and 202 average his last two seasons. But before that, every season, he never had an average below 242. And if he could even get back up to 242, which was his average when he was a 22-year-old rookie in Detroit in 2014, then he could really get things going. I mean, still had 31 home runs and 79 RBIs, even hitting 198. Even in a really bad year, he still had an 80 OPS plus. In 2020, when he wasn't good either, 202 batting average, he still had a 100 OPS plus. And the three seasons before that was 115, 136, 131. So he's shown consistency in the past. And if he could at least be a power bat, like a consistent power bat for us, maybe show off some, I think he could be a consistent, solid enough defensive player, being consistently at third base and not being moved to shortstop like the Reds tried to do. I think that could really benefit him too, and he could focus more on his hitting and start to get his totals back up, because the dude obviously has a ton of power. He's a very talented hitter. And if he could at least be streaky in those streaks, the Mariners could seriously be dangerous. And I think he's a guy that if he could get the bat figured out a little bit with a new change of scenery, back to third base, new hitting coach, great, a nice looking up and coming lineup here, sticks with Jesse Winker there. I think he has the potential to kind of break out and remind people that he is still a good MLB hitter. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. I'm not going to guarantee that.
Yeah, my pick for breakout player is not a position player. It is a pitcher, and that pitcher is Chris Flexen. He was really good last year. You could call it a breakout year for him. Getting at a 3.61 ERA. He pitched 179 innings, and McDonald's won't get their ads out of my face. But he had, where are the strikeouts? 125 strikeouts. So the strikeout rate wasn't very high, but he had a 115 ERA plus. So he's a much above average pitcher. He had a very good FIP, which is fielding independent pitching. He had a 1.25 whip, and he gave up almost or just one home run per 9 innings. Um, so I think he has a lot of room to improve. And I think this year he might be down in like the 3.1 ERA, and maybe he'll get closer to 9 strikeouts per nine, which, is a really good average. If you're striking out one batter an inning, that's a really good statistic to have. And I think he can get closer there. I think he's got really good arm action with his kind of straight up and down motion. His curveball kind of just drops. But yeah, I think he's my pick for breaking out. And if he becomes our best pitcher this year, and Robbie Ray, maybe takes a step back, and Chris Flexen emerges as, the best pitcher, it would be a nice surprise. But I can see him becoming a clear number 2.
For sure. And he's also only 27 years old. Our next our next category is going to be our gold or our platinum glove for the year. So out of any of the defensive positions, who do you think will be the best fielder on the Mariners? I think that I wanted to just go with the easy pick, but I wanted to keep it a little bit fun. So instead of going with JP Crawford, who was a gold glover 2 years ago and could have won it last year if it wasn't for Carlos Correa. And he's great defensively, and he is probably still our best fielder. But the reason why I picked someone else is because there's another guy that I already mentioned that is really great defensively, and that's going to be Ty France. I think that he's got a full off season of knowing he's going to show up to the ballpark every day, be a first baseman. He works there now. He had the best fielding percentage in the MLB at first base last year once he went over there. And he was really great over there at first base, helped out a lot of guys picking it and whatnot. And some people could say like, oh, maybe first base isn't quite as important defensively. It's still a defensive position. It's still important in a lot of scenarios, and it's still an award to be given there for Gold Glove. And there have been guys that have won platinum gloves at first base before. I don't think he'll win it for the league, and I think he'll contend for a Gold Glove at first base in the American League for sure. And just to spice things up a little bit, not just pick JP Crawford like I almost did and probably should have. I picked Ty France to be that for the Mariners this year.
Yeah, at least one of us has to pick JP Crawford. I mean, he's one of the best defensive players in the entire league, regardless of position. And he can make every play with his glove. He can make every play with his legs. He can make every routine throw. He's great at double plays. The only thing that kind of gets him is arm accuracy when he's trying to, make the big time plays. Every now and then he'll be like really moving away from first base, and he'll give it like a huck attempt, and he'll, bounce it in the infield grass, and it won't be very close, and he'll kind of shrug it off. But none of his errors ever really come with the glove. It's always, a throwing error. So if he can, really tune in his throws, especially non-routine throws, he'll be arguably one of the better defensive players of all time, because he's got the glove, he's got the range. He just needs to work on the arm to make those, crazy plays. Kind of like Andrelton Simmons. He just doesn't have the same arm that Simmons does. So, yeah.
Sure. And our last award is for the Silver Slugger. So best just hitter in general, or most powerful hitter, if you want to say, on the Mariners. And I already gave the award to Ty France. Jake's already picked Mitch Haniger. So I'll just go ahead and pick the new guy that's not Eugenio Suarez, and I'll just take Jesse Winker. He's a great hitter. I think that he is right on line as usual, especially if he maybe gets a few at bats against lefties to be online right around 25, 30 home runs, right around a 300 average, right around a 400 on base percentage, walking plenty. So I think he will continue his great offensive stats. Maybe the home runs go down by a couple just because he's in T-Mobile Park and not there at Talking Stick Resort Field or whatever it is in Cincinnati. But yeah, so I'll show some love to the new guy there, and I'll take Jesse Winker as my Silver Slugger.
Yeah, I'm gonna go a different route just because I'm gonna interpret Silver Slugger as the best average because I kind of went with MVP. He does it all on offense. Silver Slugger though, I'll go with best average, and it's kind of tough. Winker might do it. France could really do it. But I'm gonna go with JP Crawford. I think he's really mastered hitting opposite field and just getting those singles. And then, he hits a home run if it's really needed. But, he doesn't really focus on it. He focuses more on line drives. And he's gotten really good at hitting lefty pitching, which is uncommon for a lefty hitter. And I just think that he's going to take another stride and really boost his average this year. I think he'll probably hit over 300. Hopefully he's like 300, like 305. But even 290s would be really good again. And I'm just going to bring up another award that we didn't really talk about, and we'll go reliever of the year, best out of the bullpen. Yeah. So why don't you go first?
Okay. Yeah, so reliever of the year is an interesting one. There's so many guys could pick an easy one like Seawald or Steckenrider, but I do predict a slight bit of aggression, not a ton. I still think they'll be good, but there is an up and comer that, man, I really like this dude, and I think he's going to have an increased role this year. I think he's shown the potential in the past, just hasn't had an expanded role, and in certain clutch situations he has struggled at times, but I think that he has the potential to seriously pull it together this season and really, get things to click. And so my pick this year for reliever of the year is actually going to be Johan Ramirez. I think that I could pick Andres Munoz potentially too, as he could be like a breakout guy, but I really like Johan Ramirez. His FIP says, oh, he's not that good. But last year, 1.084 whip. So that was really good. His ERA plus back in 2020 was 165, even though his FIP was over 6. So it's like, what statistic do you want to believe? Do you want to believe FIP that says he's not a great pitcher? Or do you want to believe the ERA plus that says he's a great pitcher? Because last year it was 108, and that was even with the 3.90 ERA, 27 and 2/3 innings. He just needs a little more time. His issue, he does give up home runs from time to time, and he kind of reminds me of Edwin Diaz in that way, but he's not quite as electric as Diaz. But I think that he really has the potential next year to pick it up. Strikeouts per 9 are over 11 both years. I think that if he could control the walks a little bit like he really started to last year, gets that whip down right around 1, I mean, this dude could seriously have some electric stuff. He's only 26 years old. And he's just not only electric stuff, but an electric personality. And I feel like he could seriously turn into a guy that becomes sort of that wicked, long, right-handed, snappy arm angle from the right side that turns into that dominant reliever in the bullpen.
Yeah, so everyone really thinks of Seawald when it comes to relievers, but I'm gonna give it a tie to two guys. You said Steckenrider might be an easy pick, but I don't think people are really thinking of Steckenrider like that. But he was our main closer at the end of the year. He had a two flat ERA. He had 14 saves, 67 and 2/3 inning. He has the ability to go multiple innings. Only 17 walks to 58 strikeouts. And we talk about ERA plus and how Johan had a good one, and Seawald had like a 135, but this guy Steckenrider had a 209 ERA plus. So he's basically the best reliever in the game, according to that. He only had a 1.02 whip, and he didn't give up homers. He didn't give up hits, really. He didn't give up walks. And he struck out a decent amount of batters. A 3.4 strikeout to walk ratio is really good. You're just striking out a lot of guys without walking them. And he finished 20 games. So he came in just to end the game, and we could rely on him to do that. But the second guy is a guy who's really forgotten about, but he's probably the most talented reliever we have. Just by talent standpoint. We traded for this guy last year. He's 28 years old, or not 28 years old, 24 years old. Wait, whoa. Sorry, 28
No.
years old. He's 28 years old. He debuted at 24 years old, is what I saw. But he had a 2.86 ERA with the Mariners last year and a 2.78 ERA overall. He had 14 saves on his previous team, but only 2 with us. And he's got probably the dirtiest slider in the MLB. 147 ERA plus on the year, and he's never had one lower than 129. His name's Diego Castillo, and he strikes out a lot of batters. Doesn't really walk them. Gives up a little bit too many homers, but people aren't really getting hits off him either. We just talked about how Steckenrider had a 206 ERA plus. This guy's career high in 2020 was a 249 ERA plus, which is insane. Almost 2.5 times better than an average player. And this guy has a sub-1 whip. So he's not giving up walks or hits. He just kind of gives up the home run every now and then. But he does strike out people at an 11.5 rate. So you think of Robbie Ray as a big strikeout guy. Diego Castillo is right behind him. So he is my pick with Steckenrider to tie for reliever of the year.
For sure. And then just quickly, the last on the predictions there for players is just general predictions. So this could be like 1 or 2-ish quick guys that maybe you have a prediction for something somebody will do this year or something like that. So predictions for me, and this is not involving players that we've already picked. So predictions that I want to say is I feel like I don't think we're really going to necessarily have a closer this year. We got Steckenrider, we got Seawald, we will have Ken Giles and all these other guys. But I would really like to think that Logan Gilbert and Marco Gonzalez can both kind of figure it out and dial it in and get their ERAs under 4. So that would be cool. But my prediction is going to actually be that Matt Brash. Well, let's see. I was going to go with the strikeout number, but I feel like that's a little bit touchy. I'm still a little bit undetermined on that. So I'm just going to go with my secondary prediction for Brash. And that's that Brash, finishes the season as our 3rd best pitcher, right behind, Ray. And then, maybe Flex and maybe Gilbert, maybe Marco. But I think he could be our 3rd best pitcher, have an ERA under 4, really have a great season. This dude is just so nasty. Like, his slider is disgusting. He throws hard. He attacks hitters. He's not going to walk guys. He's aggressive. And I think he's a dude that's really just going to figure out his first year. And, whether in his second year he has some things to figure out, or maybe he has a little bit of a slump in the middle of the year because hitters start to figure him out a little bit. I think he's going to figure things out and have a great rookie year. And then I wanted to give an offensive one too. So I'm going to predict that, Everybody hates on Adam Frazier because he just slaps the ball around and he's a contact hitter. But I'm sick and tired of people that say the guys that are contact hitters and hit over 300 are not actually good hitters, because he's a good hitter and he's going to hit over 300 again this year. And he's probably going to be our leadoff man the whole year. So my prediction is just going to be that he hits over 300 again this year. And it's going to be huge for our lineup because we had the worst average in the MLB last year's team. We need more contact, especially in big situations, and we need more guys on base because we had some pop last year. But we need some more guys on base when we have that pop. And we need to start out scoring guys. And a big average season that we're going to get from Adam Frazier this year is going to be huge for us. So I cannot wait to see Frazier continue that great contact hitting that he's known for, and I can't wait to see the breakout season that we're about to witness from Matt Brash.
Yeah, I mean, just like some guys just don't have the power and they just need to hit for average. I think Adam Frazier does a really good job of that. But my prediction is kind of the opposite of average. And I'm going for power numbers for one of our hitters. I'm going to say Jared Kelenic hits over 25 home runs.
That's a solid prediction right there, honestly. I mean, with a full
He hit-
season, if he gets his contact figured out.
He hit 14 home runs last year. But I mean, in spring training, he hit 4 home runs in 4 days, I believe. So, and that was 1 a day, I think. It was either 3 in 3 days or 4 in 4. But balls were popping off his bat in spring training. And I think this year he's going to get it down. He's going to hit, over 200, probably 220, 230, but he's going to hit 25 or more home runs, maybe 30. And as for pitching, I want to say that our bullpen ends up being ranked the number 1 overall bullpen this year.
That's a fair
I
prediction.
think we were second last year.
We were right up there, and I feel like that's a good one to move us into our next category, which is team strengths, weaknesses, and whatnot. Because obviously you think that the bullpen will continue to be a strength for us. I'm going to jump right in there with you on strengths. I think the bullpen definitely has the ability to be good again, especially with the depth. But for strengths, I'm actually going to go with our offense becoming a strength. And the reason why is because, I mean, we add a contact guy in Frazier, and then we add a guy in Winker who's contact and power. Suarez adds a lot of raw power to the lineup. You have the potential to bring up Julio Rodriguez, who will be a great all-around hitter. Kelenic figures out the contact. He will also be a great all-around hitter. And then you have Haniger with his pop in his bat. You got France with his all-around approach. JP with his slap-around approach. And then you add in like some offensive contributions, potentially whatever we can get out of Tom Murphy. And then the offensive contributions of Abraham Toro, who has really shown that he's a great contact guy, who has a little bit of pop. Terens really has some pop in that bat, some life. Kyle Lewis always has pop in the bat, but we just got to see him healthy. I mean, we really have a lot of options and a lot of depth, not to mention a guy like Souza who's got some pop in the minor leagues who can come up, or other guys that are minor league players with pop that can come up as well. Maybe we see Cal Raleigh start to show something. Dylan Moore's got some pop too. He showed some really good offense back in 2020, but just couldn't get the contact figured out last year. Maybe he starts to turn things around too. So I honestly think we have so many options, such great depth in the offense, and really some top end talent too in that lineup. And I think that the offense will be a strength. If I'm picking a weakness, I feel like I don't necessarily think we have any like glaring weaknesses on this team, but I'm going to go with catcher just as like a weakness. It's not necessarily a thing, but I'm going to go with catcher because Terens is a good hitter, but he's atrocious on defense. Rowley's kind of like at both sides of the ball. And then Murphy is a decent defensive catcher, but he really does not provide much on the offensive side, especially against right-handed pitching. So I feel like catcher is still something we really need to get figured out We used the first round pick on a catcher guy in Harry Ford last year. Cal Raleigh's still young. We got other guys too, who are young in the minor leagues, but I don't know. It's something that hopefully figures itself out this year with those three guys. Hopefully one of them can take control, but it's something that I'm going to be watching this year as a weakness. And then for ceiling floor for this team, our win floor, and our floor is obviously out of the playoffs. I think that there is the potential for that with a loaded AL. But I think our win floor, I'm going to place at 75 just because that's actually pretty safe. Plus, it's a team that hasn't made the playoffs in a really, really long time. And we were outscored last year. So you never know. But our win ceiling, which I think will be much closer to, is 95. And that is because we really, if things come together, if the young guys that are coming up are as good as they are hyped up to be, and guys that struggled last year, like Kellenic and Suarez and whatnot, turn things around to what they have been in their career or have been predicted to be in their career, we could really be an awesome team and win the division. And 95 is kind of where I'm putting it there. So we'll probably be somewhere around 90-ish, high 80s in wins. But 95, the ceiling with the division title, is the ceiling that I think we could definitely achieve and is more likely than the floor.
Yeah, I think our biggest weakness, again, we're a really well-rounded team now. Our biggest weakness is still contact. We still have a lot of guys who are going to strike out a lot and have averages. Hopefully they kind of fix that. But on paper right now, our weakness is average. We have France, Crawford, Winker, and Frazier, who are really good contact guys. And then we have Terens and Haniger, who are good contact guys. But then after that, it gets really sketchy with like Tom Murphy, Raleigh, Kellenic, Dylan Moore, Suarez. Toro is hot and cold. Julio Rodriguez, I can't say anything about what his contact in the majors will be, but it's probably going to be solid. So I'd put him in the average. But we still have a lot of guys who struggle with contact, at least last year. So that's kind of our weakness on offense. Our strength, I mean, we've got a couple of strengths. Our strengths, our bullpen is really good. Our defense is the best in the league as of last year. And I don't think it takes much of a hit as long as Jesse Winker doesn't touch the field very often. As long as he is, DHing a lot, our defense will be good. Because I think Julio is good and Kellenic is solid and Haniger is solid in the outfield. And then power is another strength. We have a lot of power. Kellenic can hit power. Rodriguez, Suarez, Haniger, even Dylan Moore has power. Luis Torrens. Everyone on this team can hit bombs besides JP and Adam Frazier. And even JP can hit bombs every now and then. He hit 14 last year? I think he hit over 10. Let me look.
Optimistic.
Let me look before I. 9. Why did I say 14? He hit 9. I don't know why I said 14. He hit 9 home runs, which is decent for a contact hitter. And Adam Frazier had under 9, had under 10. He had 5. So there's 2 guys in your lineup who can't really hit home runs. And technically Cal Raleigh, even though he's got power, he just can't seem to do it because he only hit, 1 last year? 2?
Yeah, he only had a couple. Not very many at-bats for Raleigh, so just 2 home runs for Raleigh.
2 home runs and 139 at-bats. So, but yeah, power is really good. As for weakness, our starting pitching is very hot and cold. Obviously, Robbie Ray's good, but Gonzalez had a really poor first half of the year. So hopefully he can keep that second half going. Gilbert is very hot and cold. Flexen is also hot and cold, but he seems to be a little more consistent. And then you have a rookie and Matt Brash starting. And then your other options are like Justice Sheffield, who will be coming out of the bullpen. And then I don't even know what we would do after that. He can be inconsistent, and the bullpen makes up for a lot of that. Of course, we had one of the best bullpens last year, but our starting pitching was again hot and cold. So if we can get consistent on starting pitching, I think we can win a lot of games. And if we do that, if we get the contact and we get the consistent starting pitching, I think our ceiling is 100 wins and the first seed in the AL. Maybe not the first seed, maybe the second seed because of the Blue Jays. But I think we could hit 100 wins. We play the Athletics a lot, we play the Rangers and the Angels, who are good but not great, and we play the Astros, who we struggle against. But hopefully, we'll be able to turn the corner against them. And then there's quite a few bad teams in the AL that we could feast upon, like the Orioles, Athletics, whoever's in the Central at the bottom, because I forget. But yeah, 100 wins is our ceiling. I think our floor is 80 wins. Fighting for a wild card spot and just missing. And I think that's all for my predictions. Yeah, 80 win floor, 100 win ceiling.
Yep.
So I think I'm 5 above you in both categories.
Yeah, and you also
And
did
then
predict them
I'll just-
to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did predict them to win the AL West. But I'll just go right into things I'm watching closely, and that you as a fan should watch closely, and that's Julio Rodriguez, Julio Gilbert, Brash,
Kellenic.
those 4 young guys. Well, those 4 young guys specifically, and then like Flexen's development. But watching the young guys' development this year, seeing how Cal, I guess, to he'll probably play against right-handed pitching, just because Tom Murphy can't really hit against them. So trying to watch the development of our 4 or 5 young guys, and even like Andres Moon, you could watch, but just watching to see young guys succeed.
It's going to be really important to watch the young guys because they're going to be a big storyline, because a lot of people that criticize the Mariners have said, a lot of their production last year didn't come from that young core, which is potentially not good for the future. But with guys like Julio Rodriguez and guys that could turn it around and starting to make their debuts and still a loaded farm system, I honestly think that that's wrong. And I mean, Winker's only 27. Munoz is still very young. Like, a lot of the guys on this team, even like Ty France is 27. A lot of the best players on this team are still not even old. They're just not top prospects that have come up with the organization, but they're not old. Anyways, my big storyline that I have for the season is, well, the first one is, can the bullpen do what they did last year? They had no expectations last year and they were one of the best. And this year they have a bunch of expectations. Can they perform to that level again? And my other storyline is going to be the Mariners finished not only with the worst average in the MLB, but over 40 runs. They were outscored by over 40 runs. Can they not only have a season where they outscore their opponents for the course of a full season for the first time in what would be a long time, and not have a bad batting average, but have one of the better offenses, outscore opponents, have some blowout wins? We had one of the best records in the MLB in extra innings and in close games. Can we actually blow teams out, prove that we're a good team, win convincingly, win consistently, not be super streaky, be one of the consistent best teams in the MLB, and really show that we're ready to be more of a dominant contender and not just a one-time show here for everybody to root for as like an underdog? Like, can we actually prove that we're one of the better teams? And that, along with can the bullpens keep it together from last year, is my big storylines for the season. So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up though. Went over a lot of stuff, MLB news, MLB transactions, stuff going on with the Mariners. Remember tomorrow, 1:10 in Minneapolis, Mariners debut. And then April 15th is the home opener against the Astros. And the second series against the White Sox in between. Make sure you follow us as always on Instagram at Mariners Deep Dive Podcast, Twitter, M's Deep Dive Pod. I'm Luke Westfall. This is Jacob Westfall. Thanks for tuning in. As always, we're excited for a full Mariners season this year. And yeah, as always, peace out, Mariners fans.